The largest, most successful gang of diamond thieves in the world is credited with over 370 heists worth $500 million. And it's getting bigger and more daring every year. The gang is composed of networks of teams who work together, in Europe mostly, but they've done jobs in 35 countries as far afield as Tokyo and Dubai. They are ex-Yugoslavs. Many fought in the Serbian Special Forces during the Bosnian Wars. They are called the Pink Panthers, and that's not a joke. They got their name from those famous Peter Sellers movies of the 70s and 80s. But as you can well imagine, there are scores of jewelers and cops in many countries who do not find them funny at all. Their exploits have become the stuff of legend, but what they did in Dubai a few years ago shocked even the police officers who'd been after them for years. Security camera footage captured the scene at the upscale Wafi Mall. They drove right into the mall in two Audis, crashed the cars into the doors of the Kroft jewelry store. Then men in commando gear jumped out, ran into the shop, seemed perfectly relaxed as they broke into glass cases and bagged diamonds worth $3.5 million. Then they got back in their cars and just drove away. How did you react when you heard about the Dubai heist? I mean, it was pretty brazen, wasn't it?
I had to see the video of it to believe that they actually drove two cars through the mall and then to do all of that in less than 45 seconds. Yeah, it was hard to believe, but it happened.
That's the world's chief cop who found it hard to believe. Ron Noble is Secretary General of Interpol, the global police organization based in Lyon, France.
I'd say that they're the most notorious organized crime group that I've been involved in investigating in my life.
So they're really good.
The problem is that they've become legendary because they are so good in their planning and their execution of robberies.
Legendary in part because of their name.
I'm sorry, darling.
Remember the scene from that hilarious Peter Sellers comedy where the thief hides the diamond in a jar of cold cream? Well, these professional thieves did exactly the same thing after they hit a high-end jewelry store in London in 2003, making off with $40 million in diamonds. That's how they became known as the Pink Panthers. Incidentally, it was the largest jewel heist in British history. Then, Tokyo. Men wearing wigs entered luxury shops, immobilized clerks with pepper spray, and made off with diamonds, a tiara, and the Comtesse de Vendôme necklace worth $30 million. Copenhagen, 2007. A jewelry store inside a hotel. In front of stunned guests, 3 men raced through the lobby and into the store. They smashed glass cases and made off with more than $1 million worth of stones. In the last 20 years, they've been responsible for $500 million in robberies. In all that time, there's been one fatality. What makes the Panthers so successful, Noble says, is how they do weeks of surveillance and preparation before an attack. These undercover shots show a team taking the measure of a target before a hit.
The MO of the Pink Panthers is very clear. They tend to use a woman to case the jewelry stores first.
An attractive woman.
Attractive woman, woman wearing expensive clothing, woman wearing expensive jewelry.
A well-heeled man enters next, blocks the door open with his foot, and clears the path for the smash and grab men. 4 people altogether. Precise timing and well-planned getaways are their trademark.
From the time they enter the door until they break all the glass in the cases, take the jewelry and are out in less than 30 seconds, and then they have a getaway plan. Within a matter of hours, they're in another country. That's their classic MO, if you will.
If the Mafia grew out of Sicily, the Pink Panthers are a product of Montenegro and Serbia, the now independent republics in what was once Yugoslavia. They were allies in the brutal Bosnian wars against the Muslims. When UN sanctions halted the flow of products into the country, groups of soldiers became professional smugglers. Did many of them have paramilitary training?
The Corps were fighters during the war. Paramilitary training, very organized, very disciplined, and ruthless. And those are the ones who started it back in 94, 95, 96.
So they learned their trade in the war.
Yes. They grown up with aggression. They know if you want to have success in your life, you have to use force. And for them, it's common.
Andrea Schultz is a risk prevention consultant in Germany who's been investigating the gang for 10 years. So the distinctive thing about Pink Panthers from robbers in other countries is that since they're so experienced in war, they are not afraid.
They're not afraid, absolutely.
To date, Interpol has identified 800 core Pink Panthers using photos, fingerprints, and DNA. They are notorious for using fake passports, which makes them very hard to catch. Noble says, unlike the mafia, they have no chain of command.
They've got networks, and depending upon the robbery, there's someone who organizes a particular robbery, but there is no kingpin. There's no Al Capone or John Gotti at the top of the organized crime groups like classic or traditional organized crime.
They have specialists in everything from alarms to safe cracking to stealing cars, and those experts are not hard to find. Do they have connections in every country?
In Europe, in quite every country, you have the Balkan community, so they have the possibility to have connection. In Switzerland, we know that, and it's the same in France, in Germany, in Sweden, in Denmark.
Swiss detective Jan Glassi says Geneva is one of their favorite cities because it's so rich. It's where billionaires come to shop and play. So they went into this store?
They went inside this store.
And if they only get 15 watches, they've made like $1 million in 50 seconds.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
This team, wearing wigs and sunglasses, robbed a luxury store on the Rue de Rhône, the street in Geneva. They grabbed $4 million worth of diamonds and made their getaway in motorcycles down a street which was too narrow for police cars. So it's almost a sport between you and them, isn't it?
It is. It is always a little bit like that. That means they are always a step before us because they are changing the modus operandi. And yes, it's a little bit a cat and mouse game.
They're professionals.
They are really, really professional.
There's no way for you to get there in time.
No. For the cops, it's very difficult. Normally, we can say between 3 and 5 minutes.
And by that time, they're in France.
At that time, they are on the way to France.
A James Bond blockbuster could be made out of what they did in Saint-Tropez. The roads get clogged in summer, so after posing as tourists and scoring more than $3 million worth of jewelry, the Panthers made their getaway by sea. And when you hear that they got out of Saint-Tropez in speedboats, are you thinking, that's pretty good?
All the cops were thinking that. That's pretty good, but now we have a lot of job to do.
We drove to the seaside town of Olsztyn, Montenegro to meet a semi-retired Pink Panther who's been associated with that job. He calls himself Philip. He agreed to talk to us at a rented apartment in a secret location. We had to turn off our electronic devices before he appeared, and we agreed not to show his face. How many jobs have you done?
9.
9. What was your best robbery?
My best robbery. Okay, in France was my best robbery. It was very, very speedy.
Very speedy.
Yeah, very speedy, like Speedy Gonzales. It was good money, and nobody hurts.
You get a couple of million euros in France, and then how did you get them someplace where you could get money?
I have a connection everywhere. If I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. We go to Belgium. We have friends.
When they go to Belgium, they always drop in on Antwerp, where gems worth billions are traded every day.
We know that a lot of diamonds come to Antwerp, stolen diamonds, stolen jewelry. Why do they come to Antwerp? Because the diamond trade is here in Antwerp.
Patrick Pays is chief inspector of the Antwerp Diamond Squad.
If you compare their volume and their value, is the best product in the world, of course. That's why diamonds are so much used in other criminal acts.
Making matters worse for cops, only the most expensive diamonds have laser inscriptions with identifying numbers. And even then, large diamonds can be recut. making it impossible to tell whether or not they've been stolen. So from what you're saying, being a diamond thief isn't a bad career. You make a lot of money, and the odds are with you. The odds are with you that you're not going to get
I wouldn't
caught.
advise anybody to start that career, but yes, I can imagine from their view that, yeah, it's a living, it's a way of a living, and the possibilities of getting caught are probably not that high.
And recently we learned the Pink Panthers have started branching out. We know them as jewelry thieves. Are they expanding their operations?
They're expanding their operations into art, and very, very fine art.
In 2008, a group of armed and masked panthers hit this museum in Zurich, making off with a Monet, a Van Gogh, a Degas, and a Cézanne. It was the largest art robbery in European history. The last of the paintings was recovered in April 2012 in a dramatic raid captured on videotape. The Serbian SWAT team stormed this house to arrest the men accused of snatching the Impressionist works. The cops took a van in for examination and found something hidden in the ceiling. When they pulled it out, they discovered it was Cézanne's Boy in the Red Vest. Estimated value, $113 million. But nailing a couple of panthers doesn't help the police nearly as much as they would like it to. Now, when one of these guys gets caught, will he squeal? Will he give you evidence about the other people, his partners?
No, there is an omerta between them.
The omerta really works.
The omerta really works, and when we are speaking about the best teams, a lot of them are really friends. That means they grew up together.
Still, since 2007, hundreds of arrests have been made, but those panthers just keep on reproducing. We understand that there are approximately 180 new members in the last couple of years?
Yes, so the next generation is being recruited.
And trained, presumably.
Recruited and trained.
Their daring has inspired legions of copycats. Disguising themselves as women in burqas, these thieves robbed a jewelry store in a mall in Bahrain, and this gang took to their motorcycles to rob a jewelry store in London.
The copycats are really just organized crime groups that have identified an easy way to make money based on the celebrity status, I would say, in large part, of the Pink Panthers.
And the police admit that, unfortunately, they themselves didn't help matters when they started calling the gang Pink Panthers.
The problem with this group is that the name Pink Panthers, it engenders inside us, the first memory is the movie. We smile at the name of Pink Panthers.
And here's why.
Does your dog bite? Oh. I thought you said your dog did not bite.
That is not my dog.
And indeed, the first thing you think of when you hear Pink Panther is comedy.
That's why we try to highlight whenever we can the way in which they perpetrate these robberies. These are not nice guys, and they're not nice guys who are stealing from the rich to give to the poor. These are just cold-blooded and ruthless and notorious thieves.
Do you think twice when typing in your credit card number online, but have no problem handing over your plastic card at a store? Well, actually, you may have it backward. Your personal information may be more secure in cyberspace than at the mall down the road. That's because it's easier for .coms to protect the data, and most stores in America underestimate how vulnerable they are. It's becoming a big problem. The retail industry got a wake-up call earlier this year when TJX, parent company of TJ Maxx and Marshalls, disclosed that it had suffered the worst high-tech heist in shopping history. Hackers raided the company's computer system, taking off with tens of millions of records. And what we have learned is TJX could have prevented it.
They collected too much personal information. They kept it too long, and finally, they didn't keep it according to appropriate security standards.
Jennifer Stoddard led the investigation of the TJX theft for the Canadian government and released her findings before investigations in the U.S. are finished. TJX operates chains in both countries.
Is there an actual place where the crime took place?
Yes, it seems that the intrusion happened at 2 Marshall's stores in the Miami area.
Did the crime happen inside the stores or outside the store?
This was a case of penetrating the network from without the stores. Because it is a wireless network, you can then capture the wireless transmissions if they're not sufficiently encrypted.
When you swipe your credit card, your data is often transmitted through a wireless router, either to a bank for approval or to the store's main computer. But the signal carrying your information bleeds easily through the walls.
If you drive this close, it'll pop up.
Right.
Welcome to my first lesson in something called war driving. My teacher, computer forensic investigator Chris Harms, who shows me how hackers outside in a van grab the store's wireless data.
So if you and I are in this parking lot, and we park in front of one of these big stores, we can just pluck it, is what you're saying, right through the wall.
Absolutely.
All you need, he says, is a computer.
This is just a regular laptop.
Just a
right?
regular laptop
Okay.
that you can go buy at any store.
But did you have to soup it up with special software to do this?
The software that I gained is free.
Within moments, we start getting results.
Right now, we're right in front of Best Buy.
Right. So
Okay.
Best Buy has a wireless network.
Oh, it says Best Buy. I saw it. It just popped up.
The computer is identifying which stores have wireless signals. Some stores hide their identities, others don't.
Oh, Staples. I saw one.
Staples popped up. And Home Depot, with its signature color, wasn't hard to identify either.
It doesn't say Home Depot, but it says orange.
Right.
So that's kind of their code.
Those particular stores told us the wireless signals we picked up do not link to their customer databanks. But sometimes similar signals do lead hackers to central computers where the data is held. Chris told us that stores should have security to prevent that.
When wireless first became a technology for people to use, they realized that they needed a way to protect that data that's flying around in this cloud. So they designed WEP.
WEP was encryption code developed in 1999, just as the big chains started going wireless. But within a couple of years, hackers had cracked WEP, rendering it obsolete. If you go on YouTube today, you can learn how to disable it in minutes.
In this episode, we're going over cracking WEP encryption.
Now, there's much better encryption code called WPA. In fact, credit card companies urge retailers to upgrade to WPA. But that's expensive, so many stores resist it, even though hackers can tell who hasn't upgraded.
It's saying WEP or WPA. That's telling you if they have good encryption devices.
That's right.
It's actually telling you that right on your computer?
It's-
That's amazing. So are you able, with what you have right here in the car with us, to crack WEP right now?
Executing the attack is as simple as clicking a button and making it happen.
And you're in.
And you have pierced the first wall of what hopefully is many.
At the time of its break-in in 2005, TJX did have a security system. The problem was, it was the outdated encryption code WEP.
Was TJX aware that they were using a system that was pretty much useless? Did they know that?
If you're running a huge wireless network, it's your business to know about encryption standards, so they should have known that.
TJX did know, but in a letter they told us in their defense that they believe our security was comparable to many major retailers. Yet internal company documents suggest they were warned it was risky to use outdated encryption. In 2005, a TJX vice president sent his bosses this email: "We are still vulnerable with WEP as our security key. It must be a risk we are willing to take for the sake of saving money." By then, the hackers had already broken in, and once in, they raided not only the 2 Miami stores, but over 2,400 TJX stores in the U.S., England, and Canada, walking away with close to 100 million credit card numbers.
because all the stores are networked to a central server. And so by getting in at any part in the network, they could then make their way virtually to the central server and siphon off the information for a year and a half, undisturbed.
As if it was their own house.
Exactly.
On top of the credit card numbers, the hackers got hundreds of thousands of driver's license and social security numbers and military IDs, personal records about their customers kept for years after the purchases were made.
And what's the justification for holding on to the information for so long? Is it just that it's too expensive to cull it out, or?
It costs money to dispose securely of personal information, so it was just easier to keep it. I think it's that kind of a perhaps unwise business decision.
Credit card numbers stolen from TJX keep popping up around the globe. These images from Florida were used to convict a ring of thieves who made fake cards from TJX numbers and bought over $1 million worth of merchandise. And if you're wondering how the thieves got the stolen card numbers, here's how: illegal online auction sites where millions of stolen card numbers are bought and sold. Sean Henry, the FBI's top cybercrime agent, showed us how a thief auctions off a stolen credit card.
A person can buy this credit card, and they bid on it like it's eBay. eBay for
They actually
guys.
would enter into a negotiation with the individual.
We were allowed to watch while an FBI undercover agent entered into just such a negotiation.
What you see here is somebody who's actually offered to sell credit card numbers.
The agent asks, how much do you sell those for?
In this particular case, what we have is an undercover agent who is engaged in a conversation with somebody who's selling 4 full identities, and for $100 for 4 full identities.
The agent places his bid. I'll take 4 verifiables by Visa for $25.
Now, this person could be in Europe. He could be anywhere.
Could be anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world.
The chances of ever finding these crooks are remote, but the FBI tries to establish a relationship. So after some internet banter, the agent jokes, "I'll smile when I get visas," he deposits money into the seller's online bank account asking, "You do take e-gold, right?" Answer, "Yes." Now we wait for the deal to go down.
Here it is.
This is the email.
We just received it.
4 people's personal information.
That's right.
That is breathtaking and scary.
What popped up were complete files on 4 Americans. Here's Pam with her address, her social security, credit card, and ATM PIN numbers. Even the answer to that security question, what's your mother's maiden name?
Every way to just steal a lot of money from them.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you consider all this kind of theft, the cost to the American economy is huge.
There are some estimates that estimate it in multiple billions of dollars per year of loss.
Billions.
Yes.
Leading to a multi-billion-dollar blame game between the retail industry and the credit card companies.
Is there growing tension between the two sides now?
Lesley, absolutely. There's growing tension between the two sides.
Dave Hogan of the National Retail Federation says credit card companies should change how they do business.
If we could just force Visa and MasterCard to not require retailers to store credit card data, this issue would disappear overnight.
Hogan says card companies force retailers to store customer data in case there are charge disputes. He thinks the card companies should hold the data, not the stores.
Honestly, we could eliminate this problem
If it's
within a
that
few
easy,
days.
why hasn't it been done?
I'm not too sure how vested the credit card companies are as far as securing customers' data.
And you're saying that the credit card companies are the ones who are not security conscious?
In my humble opinion, no.
He accuses the credit card companies of using this issue as a way to make money. Visa, for example, has started fining large chains that do not have up-to-date security $25,000 a month.
If you do the math on it, this could be a windfall of $200 million annually for the credit card companies as far as a revenue stream.
Visa chose not to respond. However, along with other credit card companies, it has issued strict guidelines to retailers on how to protect customer data. But most stores just don't comply.
The retail industry is not doing enough to prevent these breaches. They're not.
Mark Rash, the former head of the cybercrime unit at the Justice Department, says this is a war the hackers are winning. Consider the worthless encryption code WEP.
I had heard that there are retailers who installed WEP even after it was known it didn't work.
There are
now,
retailers,
is that true?
There are retailers who've installed it after. There are some installing it today.
They can't be installing it today.
Even today, there are people installing it.
He says stores keep making the same mistakes TJX made, like using passwords any hacker can figure out.
Like what?
Like password.
The password is password?
The password
and everybody
is password.
I don't know why anybody who looks into this would ever use a credit card ever.
Because it's a lot more convenient than walking around with piles of cash in your pocket.
'Tis the season for big-time shopping for you and me and for the criminals who are going after our data, among them the TJX hackers, who are still at large.
Retailers need to adopt the next appropriate technology and the next one and the next one and the one after that because they want people to keep buying from them. And
so it's just an ongoing escalating expense. That's all it is.
This is an arms race.
TJX told us they no longer store unneeded data and that now all of their stores in the United States use the upgraded encryption code. Since TJX disclosed the theft, many other chains have also closed their security gaps, though most stores are still vulnerable. If spying is the world's second oldest profession, the government of China has given it a new modern-day twist, enlisting an army of spies not to steal military secrets, but the trade secrets and intellectual property of American companies. It's being called the Great Brain Robbery of America. The Justice Department says that the scale of China's corporate espionage is so vast, it constitutes a national security emergency, with China targeting virtually every sector of the U.S. economy and costing American companies hundreds of billions of dollars in losses and more than 2 million jobs.
They're targeting our private companies, and it's not a fair fight. A private company can't compete against the resources of the second largest economy in the world.
John Carlin is the Assistant Attorney General for National Security with responsibility for counterterrorism, cyber attacks, and increasingly economic espionage.
This is a serious threat to our national security. I mean, our economy depends on the ability to innovate. And if there's a dedicated nation state who's using its intelligence apparatus to steal day in and day out what we're trying to develop, that poses a serious threat to our country.
What is their ultimate goal, the Chinese government's ultimate goal?
They want to develop certain segments of industry, and instead of trying to out-innovate, out-research, out-develop, they're choosing to do it through theft.
All you have to do, he says, is look at the economic plans published periodically by the Chinese Politburo. They are, according to this recent report by the technology research firm Invent IP, in effect blueprints of what industries and what companies will be targeted for theft.
We see them put out the strategic plan, and then we see actions follow that plan. We see intrusion after intrusion on U.S. companies.
Do you have a number of U.S. companies that have been hit?
It's thousands of, actually, companies have been
Thousands of
hit
U.S. companies.
Of U.S. companies.
But getting CEOs from those companies to talk is nearly impossible because most of them still have business in China and don't want to be cut out of its huge market. Daniel McGann, the head of American Superconductor, is an exception. His firm spent years and millions of dollars developing advanced computer software for wind turbines that McGann says China looted, nearly putting him out of business. He's talking because he wants to fight back.
I'm personally never going to give this up. Too many lives were affected. Too many families were damaged through this. We can never give up on this.
You had to fire 600 people.
Yes.
Out of how many jobs?
At the time, we were almost 900.
So how much did you lose in share value?
Total loss is well over $1 billion.
Today, his factory floor is largely silent, a shadow of this once thriving company.
I think part of the strategy in all this was to kill us.
They set out to kill you.
To kill the company.
How can he be so sure? Well, his story begins when China passed a clean energy law in 2005, calling for the creation of mega wind farms throughout the country. The law made China the hottest wind power market in the world. So McGann partnered with a small Chinese firm called Sinovel, which was partly owned by the government. Sinovel made the skeletons of the turbines, and his company, American Superconductor, the sophisticated gadgetry and computer code to run them. They actually built the turbine.
They make the turbine, we make the controls.
And did they make these turbines with your brains in them for the entire country of China?
Yes.
When he went into business there, China was already notorious for poaching American intellectual property. So he says he did everything he could think of to protect his technology from being stolen.
We made sure that any software, any pieces of the code were restricted and used, were be able to access only by a few people within the company.
Once they got everything over there, couldn't they reverse engineer it?
We believe that's what they tried to do. And what they learned was this encrypted protocol was in the way. They didn't quite understand how it worked, and they couldn't reverse engineer it.
Everybody knows if it's on the internet, some brilliant hacker can get at it.
It wasn't accessible through the internet.
You kept it off the internet.
Yes.
It sounds like you built a little fortress around your precious codes.
We certainly tried.
Initially, business boomed in China for American Superconductor, with sales skyrocketing from $50 million a year to nearly $500 million.
We were going through exponential growth. It's what every technology company wants to get to, is this high level of growth. We were there.
Then in 2011, his engineers were testing the next generation software in China on Sinovel's turbines. The software had been programmed to shut down after the test, but the blades didn't shut down. They never stopped spinning.
So we said why. Yeah. We didn't really know. So the team looked at the turbine and saw running on our hardware a version of software that had not been released yet.
That's when you realized
something's wrong. So then we had to figure out how could this have happened?
To find out, he launched an internal investigation and narrowed it down to this man, Dejan Karabasevic, an employee of American Superconductor based in Austria. He was one of the few people in the company with access to its proprietary software. He also spent a lot of time in China working with Sinovel.
And what they did is they used Cold War-era spycraft to be able to turn him.
They turned him.
And make him into an agent for them.
Do you know any specifics of what they offered him?
Yeah, they offered him women, they offered him an apartment, they offered him money, they offered him a new life.
The arrangement included a $1.7 million contract that was spelled out in emails and instant messages that McGann's investigation found on Dejan's company computer. In this one, from him to a Sinovel executive, Dejan lays out the quid pro quo. All girls need money. I need girls. Sinovel needs me. Sinovel executives showered him with flattery and encouragement. You are the, quote, best man, like Superman. And did they say, we want the source codes?
It was almost like a grocery list. Can you get us A? Can you get us B? Can you get us C?
Well, I've seen one of the messages, the text message, in which Dejan says, I will send the full code, of course.
That's the full code for operating their wind turbine.
Dejan eventually confessed to authorities in Austria and spent a year in jail. Not surprisingly, the Chinese authorities refused to investigate. So Daniel McGann files suit in civil court in China, suing Sinovel for $1.2 billion. But he suspected that China was still spying on his company and that Beijing had switched from Cold War to cutting-edge espionage. So why were you brought in?
We were brought in because the attacks now continued in cyberspace.
McGann hired Dmitry Alperovich and George Kurtz, co-founders of a computer security firm called CrowdStrike, to investigate. They zeroed in on a suspicious email purportedly sent by a board member to 13 people in the company.
It had an attachment. A few people clicked on an attachment, and that let the Chinese in. It was sort of like opening the front door.
What do you mean they were in?
Once they clicked on that email, they opened up the attachment.
Yeah.
Malicious code started executing on their machine, and it beaconed out to the Chinese and basically let them right into the company. From that point, they can hop to any machine and take any file that they wanted from that network.
By analyzing who the email was sent to, they were able to infer that the Chinese were after more than just computer codes.
They also wanted to figure out the legal strategy of the company now that they were suing Cinevel for $1.2 billion.
Whenever there's a big lawsuit, we'll see the Chinese government actually break into that company, break into the legal department, and figure out what's going on behind the scenes so that they can better deal with that lawsuit.
Now, did you know at that time who had perpetrated the hack?
We were able to determine with great confidence that this was Unit 61398, part of the Chinese military, that was responsible for this attack.
Unit 61398 is believed to be based in this nondescript building in Shanghai. It's part of the People's Liberation Army, and it's charged with spying on North American corporations.
We estimate that there are several thousand people in this unit alone, this one unit.
How active is this unit?
It's one of the most prolific groups that we've tracked coming out of the Chinese government. It's unbelievable what they've been able to steal over the last decade.
Like what? Give us a sense of the scope.
Every industry, engineering documents, manufacturing processes, chip designs, telecommunications, pharmaceutical, you name it, it's been stolen.
In 2014, 5 military officers in the unit were criminally charged with economic espionage by John Carlin's National Security Division at the Justice Department.
These were officers in uniform, and their day job was to get up, go to work, log on, and steal from a range of American companies. And you would watch, as we put in an exhibit in the case, the activity would spike around 9 o'clock in the morning. They get into work, turn on their computers, and start hacking into American companies. Then it calms down a little bit from about 12 to 1, where they take a lunch break. And then it continues until the end of the day, 5 or 6 o'clock at night.
Home.
And then they go home, and it decreases till the next morning.
China has always denied that it conducts or condones economic espionage. But in September, during a visit to Washington, President Xi Jinping pledged for the first time that China would not engage or knowingly support cyber theft of intellectual property for commercial gain.
It's the first time ever they've admitted that economic espionage should be off limits and that they will not conduct it. Unfortunately, what we saw is that the very next day, the day after they were in the Rose Garden shaking hands, the intrusions continued.
Wait, stop. The hacking has not stopped.
The hacking has not stopped. But one of the things that has happened is that the military units that have been responsible for these hacks have actually had their mission taken away from them and was given to the Ministry of State Security, their version of CIA. So in effect, they said, you guys are incompetent, you got caught, we'll give it to the guys that know better.
The director of the National Counterintelligence and Security Center confirms that there's no evidence China has curtailed its economic espionage.
There's a lot of criticism out there among businessmen and some people in the government who complain that President Obama wags his finger at the Chinese, but he doesn't do anything.
Well, I think it's important that we do take action. If we don't do things like bring the indictment, then we would be, a paper tiger.
You know, it feels like a pinprick, your indictment. They're never going to be extradited. Is there talk of putting any sanctions on the way we did with Russia when they went into the Ukraine?
The bottom line, I think, has to be that we continue to increase the costs until the behavior changes. If it doesn't change, then we need to keep thinking of additional actions, whether they're trade actions or sanctions, that change the behavior.
The government of China declined our request for an interview, but sent us this comment. China has long suffered from massive cyber attacks and firmly opposes and combats all forms of cyber attacks in accordance with law. Groundless speculation, accusation, or hyping up is not helpful. In Massachusetts, Daniel McGann is rebuilding, with much of his business now shifted to India. But adding insult to injury, Sinovel is now exporting wind turbines with his stolen technology, including one purchased by the state of Massachusetts using federal stimulus funds.
So the U.S. government facilitated bringing the stolen goods into the U.S.
And they're here now?
And they're here now, and it's part of the up and running.
Sinovel, using the stolen source codes, has sold wind turbines here in Massachusetts.
To the government of Massachusetts, funded by the federal government of the United States of America.
President Bush says the United States can't leave Iraq until the country can govern and defend itself. Right now, a number of inconvenient facts suggest it can do neither. Everyone knows about the deteriorating security situation, but very little has been reported about the rampant corruption that has infected a succession of Iraqi regimes. Earlier this year, Iraqi investigators told us that at least $500 million that was supposed to equip the new Iraqi military was stolen by the very people the U.S. had entrusted to run it. It's been called one of the biggest thefts in history, the mother of all heists, and it happened right under the noses of U.S. advisors. But neither the United States nor its allies have much of an appetite for pursuing it.
People have died. Monies have gone missing. Culprits are running around the world, hiding and scurrying around. I have to ask myself, why has this happened? It is not every day that you get billion-dollar scandals of this kind.
When Ali Alawi, a Harvard-educated international banker, took over as Iraq's Minister of Finance last year, he was confronted with a gaping hole in the Treasury. $1.2 billion had been withdrawn by the new Ministry of Defense to supply the Iraqi army with desperately needed equipment to fight the growing insurgency. Millions had been misspent on old and antiquated equipment, and Alawi says most of the money simply disappeared.
How much do you think was stolen? I think the figure is probably between $750 $800 million. It's a lot of money. It's a huge amount of money by any standard, even by U.S. standards. It's one of the biggest thefts in history, I think. Gone. Gone, yes, up in smoke.
The story begins in June 2004, when presidential envoy Paul Bremer turned over authority to the interim Iraqi government, which would run the country until elections could be held. The insurgency was already gaining momentum, and with the newly constituted Iraqi army riding into battle in unarmored pickup trucks and scrounging for guns and ammunition, the Iraqi Defense Ministry went on a billion-dollar buying spree with almost no oversight. The contracts were paid in advance with no guarantees, and most of them involved a single company.
They were awarded without any bidding to a company that was established a few months prior with a total capital of $2,000. So you had nearly $1 billion worth of contracts awarded to a company that was just a paper company, whose directors had nothing to do with the Ministry of Defense or with the government of Iraq.
The name of that company was Alain Al-Jaria, which in Arabic means the ever-flowing spring. Its address here in Amman, Jordan, was a post office box, its telephone number, a mobile phone. The principal was a mysterious Iraqi by the name of Nair Jumaili, and $500 million in Iraqi defense funds would eventually find their way into his private account at the Housing Bank of Jordan. The exact whereabouts of that money and the whereabouts of Mr. Jumaili are presently unknown. The person who knows the most about the case, in fact the only person who seems to be investigating it, is Judge Radi al-Radi, Iraq's Commissioner of Public Integrity. It's his job to prosecute official corruption in Iraq, and it may be the most dangerous job in the country. Twice tortured and imprisoned under Saddam Hussein, he now receives death threats from both the insurgents and from corrupt officials. 7 of his people have been killed.
Do you have bodyguards?
No. Yes.
How many?
30.
Lots of people would like to see you dead.
I don't care. That's their problem.
You don't care? I do not care.
Judge Radi was more than happy to walk us through the case. Aside from the hundreds of millions of dollars that were stolen, Radi says much of the equipment actually delivered to the Iraqi military was useless junk. Soviet-era helicopters, some of which were considered unfit to fly, bulletproof vests that fell apart after a few weeks, and a shipment of ammunition so old one of the people inspecting it feared it might blow up.
Instead of aircraft, we receive mobile hospitals. What would an army without aircraft do with mobile hospitals? Instead of getting planes and tanks and vehicles and weapons that we needed, we got materials there really was not a big need for.
In October 2005, Judge Roddy obtained arrest warrants for some of the top officials in the Ministry of Defense, and almost all of them fled the country, including former Defense Minister Hazem Shalon, who is believed to be in Europe or the Middle East. We did manage to locate one of his top deputies, Ziad Katan, who is in charge of military procurement. We found him in Paris, happy to be there, and not terribly concerned.
There is an arrest warrant out for you.
Yes, I hear about that.
If you went back to Baghdad, you'd be arrested.
No, nobody will arrest me. They will kill me. Pro-Sharm Foundation?
The son of a retired Iraqi general, Katan had been living in Poland until a few days before the U.S. invasion, running a pizza parlor in Germany and importing and exporting used cars. But his can-do attitude and ability to speak English impressed the Americans, including Ambassador Bremer, who praised Katan in his memoir. After a few months working with the coalition on neighborhood councils, Katan was given a position in the new Ministry of Defense.
So you were recruited for this job?
Yes.
By the CPA?
Yes.
By Ambassador Bremer and his aides?
His staffs, yeah.
Did you have any experience in military procurement?
No.
To make up for this obvious deficiency, Katan was sent off to the National Defense University in Washington, D.C. for a few weeks of training, and eventually placed in charge of buying $1.2 billion worth of equipment for the Iraqi military.
The allegations are that $1.2 billion left Iraq to buy military equipment.
Yes.
And only about $400 million worth of equipment came back into the country, and that $800 million somehow disappeared.
It isn't true.
Katan told us that the charges are politically motivated and that he can account for every single dinar.
All equipment with this $1.2 billion, it is nowadays in Iraq.
It was delivered to
I
Iraq.
have documentation, I give it to you in your hand.
Well, this is a big misunderstanding. I mean, we're talking about $800 million.
Yes, it is here. I can show you. This is BTR, this is BTR 80 from Hungarian. This is ambulances, 2005 production, also in Iraq nowadays. This is mobile kitchen, also in Iraq nowadays.
Well, this isn't equipment, this is just pictures of equipment.
Yeah, but you can approve it if you want to do. Nobody wants to approve it, that's the problem.
We took all of Katan's documentation, had it translated into English, and gave it to Janes, one of the world's leading authorities on military hardware. John Kenkel, the senior director of consulting, advises countries on military purchases.
If you had $1.2 billion and you were going to equip the Iraqi army, would you have bought what they bought?
Well, that's the big question, was nobody really knows what they bought.
Kenkel told us the documents were so vague that he couldn't tell what had been ordered or whether it had been delivered.
I think the biggest thing was that you couldn't identify what the equipment was that was actually being delivered. To say that you were being delivered a gun doesn't necessarily mean anything in terms of what you're getting.
Can you think of another government in the world that would have spent $1.2 billion this way on military equipment?
Nobody that I think you would consider on the up and up.
But the thing that really suggests this wasn't on the up and up are these audio recordings, which we obtained from a former associate of Ziad Katan and the mysterious middleman Nair Jamali.
We have some audio recordings we'd like you to listen to.
Hello, good morning. My name is Dr. Ziad Katan, Deputy Secretary General, Minister of Defense.
Is that your voice?
Yes.
So I just talked with him.
The recordings were made by the associate as he drove Katan around Amman in 2004. According to two independent translations, they're talking about payoffs to Iraqi officials. This is Katan talking about a top political advisor to the defense minister, a man who is also identified on the recordings as a representative of the president and the prime minister of the interim government.
He wants to know.
He wants to know how much they are going to place in his account?
Yes, of course.
How much?
45 million.
He wants to know how much money is going to be placed in his account.
He
You say
want-
45 million.
Yes, but not dollar. I don't say dollar.
And what was it? 45 million what?
I don't remember.
Well, you're going to give him 45 million of something.
Yes, but I don't remember what the matter was.
Catan told us that U.S. and coalition advisors at the Ministry of Defense approved everything that he did, and he now believes that the recordings have been doctored. The audio experts that we consulted could find no evidence of it. Judge Roddy told us that he too has a copy of the recordings and that one former Ministry of Defense employee confessed after hearing them.
How could the American advisors have missed all of this?
I think this question should be directed to the Americans.
We certainly tried to, but no one in the U.S. government would talk to us on camera about the missing $800 million. Off camera, we were told that this was Iraqi money spent by a sovereign Iraqi government, and therefore the Iraqis' business. So where did all the money go to? It's impossible to tell. The money trail disappears inside a number of Middle Eastern banks. We can report that Ziad Catan, who was recently convicted in absentia in Iraq and sentenced to 60 years for squandering public funds, is building this villa for himself in Poland. And Nair Jamali, who is wanted by Interpol, is said to be snapping up real estate in Amman and building himself a villa.
A lot of these suspects are living outside of Iraq in comfort and don't seem to be too concerned about the charges against them.
As you know, those people, they have a lot of money right now, so they use it to bribe anybody in the world.
How much help have you gotten from countries like Poland and Jordan in either apprehending suspects or recovering money?
No help at all.
We have not been given any serious official support from either the United States or the UK or any of the surrounding Arab countries.
Why has this received so little attention, do you think?
The only explanation I can come up with is that too many people in positions of power and authority in the new Iraq have been, in one way or another, found with their hands inside the cookie jar. And if they are brought to trial, it will cast a very disparaging light on those people who had supported them and brought them to this position of power and authority.
Nobody wants to get to the bottom of it.
In practice, no.
Alawi left his post earlier this year when the new government was formed, but Judge Roddy is still there. Along with having one of the most dangerous jobs in Iraq, he also has one of the heaviest workloads. His investigators have opened 2,000 corruption cases involving 21 different ministries and $7.5 billion. The former Minister of Electricity has been convicted and sentenced to 2 years in prison, and more than a dozen other former ministers and top officials are wanted for arrest. Oil smuggling is costing the Iraqi government billions of dollars a year, and according to one estimate, 40 to 50% of the profits are going to the insurgents.